All right. Welcome everybody to day 9 of our countdown to the Romans. So again, this is the set of videos about 10 Roman facts in 10 days that I am presenting because, frankly, I'm excited about the release of the book, and these are things that I found when I was working on the book leading up to its release. The Romans is my 2,000-year history of the Roman state. It's a very unique book that traces the story of the Roman state from its foundation as a Latin-speaking pagan city, pagan, village along the Palatine Hill in central Italy, to the Crusader conquest of Constantinople in 1204 AD. And so we have Roman history from basically the beginning of the Italian Iron Age all the way through the dawn of the Gunpowder Age. And so to mark this, we're doing 10 Roman facts in 10 days. These are things that I found to be interesting in writing the book, or really cool things that I saw in the course of doing the research for the book. And number 9 is one of my absolute favorite things. So I spent a lot of time in the city of Rome writing the book and visiting sites that were related to the kinds of things that I was working on. And one of the things that I got really interested in doing was walking the city of Rome's walls. What inspired me to do this was in Athens, there's actually an app called Walk the Walls that allows you to go and walk through the city of Athens and see all of the places where the remains of the city walls still exist. There is no app like that for Rome, in part because, frankly, you don't need it, because the ancient walls of the city of Rome still exist. So nearly everybody coming into Rome from the north, south, or east enters the city through the gates, one of the gates of the Aurelian Walls. And these are walls that were built in the 270s AD by the Emperor Aurelian. They extend for 12 miles around the city. And if you look at this, this is a map that shows the Aurelian Walls in red, and then the older Servian Walls, which we'll talk about in a second, in blue. Now, the Aurelian Walls survive, aside from the parts that line the Tiber River and the part in Trastevere that's marked as Trans-Tiberum. And so if you walk these, which I did because I love doing that sort of thing, it can take you the better part of a day. I mean, it is 12 miles around the city. It's massive. And in a lot of cases, when Aurelian built these walls, he did it by incorporating existing structures. So this, for example, is an aqueduct that's incorporated into the Aurelian wall. In other places, you can see that there are, more sort of demonstrative aqueducts. The aqueducts still ran with water when he did this, right? So they're building in the aqueducts into the walls in a fashion that also, of course, protects the flow of water coming into the city. Aurelian also, because he extended the walls out from where they were before, there are a lot of tombs that were placed by prominent Romans on major roads leading out of the city of Rome, since you were generally not allowed to bury people in the city of Rome. And Aurelian included a lot of the major tombs that existed into the wall structure. So this is the Pyramid of Cestius. It's a major tomb. It's now sort of in the southern part of the city. Aurelian included it in the Aurelian Walls because it's very well built and it's very strong. But my favorite sort of inclusion is the amphitheater castrensis that was built by the Emperor Caracalla, and that also was included in the Aurelian Walls. Aurelian just filled in the entryways into the amphitheater and then just made it part of the wall. So that's what you see on the right. The interior of the wall is also really interesting because as he expanded the footprint of the city out, there were a lot of gravestones that were now within the city. And a number of these were placed in the walls. So again, if you walk along these walls, you see a number of places where some of the outer sort of brickwork is falling apart. You see little pieces of marble in there. This is one of my favorite examples because this is a really touching tomb gravestone that was made to commemorate a very gifted young poet who died as a youth. And it asks you, as you walk by, to think about his achievements and to sort of mourn the fact that he died young. This ultimately found its way into the walls. And the reason we have this is because a part of the Aurelian Walls that were taken down following Italian independence, they just found it in the wall. So when you think of these 12 miles of walls, you have to imagine there's tons of really impressive artwork contained within that brickwork. But the walls are not just kind of a one-off project. They're built in the 270s, in the early part of the fourth century, like between 307 and about 312. The walls are repaired and expanded by the Emperor Maxentius. So there are parts of the Aurelian walls where you can look at them and you can see that there's different kind of colors in the brickwork that indicate. And so if you look at this, you can see there's different, there's darker bricks on the bottom and lighter bricks on the top. These indicate repair work and expansions of the walls. There's a further expansion in the 5th century AD where the Emperor Honorius builds gatehouses and reinforces the main gates around the walls and expands out the um, the towers that are next to those gates. And this includes some really interesting stuff. So this expansion even includes, outside of the Porta Maggiore, you can go and see the remains of one of the gatehouses that the Emperor Honorius built in the 5th century. Also, Porta Maggiore is wonderful because if you see that marble sort of thing right over at the right side of that slide, this is an aqueduct, and it's the remains of an aqueduct where a couple of aqueducts come together, the Aqua Marcia and the Aqua Claudia come together, and this is monumental sort of gate work that demonstrates the rehabilitation and has an inscription demonstrating the rehabilitation of the aqueduct. Aurelian just includes this as part of the wall structure, and then you can see the gate actually builds on older kind of stonework that's part of that aqueduct. The walls are extremely wide. So they're so wide that soldiers can walk on them. There's even sort of passageways inside of them in places. There are latrines that are built into them. And they're so impressive and so important that they remain in use through the 1870s. So when the city of Rome is conquered by the Italian nation, the moment that signifies this is the breach of the Aurelian Walls on September 20th of 1870. You can see this image right there where the Aurelian Walls are breached. This is right by the Porta Pia, and it marks the final unification of the Kingdom of Italy. But the walls are interesting for other reasons as well. They are really, really well built. And so that means that people in places like the San Lorenzo neighborhood, they can appropriate those walls for what they want, including building dwellings on top of them. And so there are actually apartments that are built into the Aurelian Walls, just near the San Lorenzo neighborhood. I love the Aurelian Walls. It's super fun to go and walk around them, but I'm actually even more excited about and even more sort of enthused about the older Servian Walls, because the Aurelian Walls are not hard to find. But the Servian Walls, they just sort of show up in places where you don't expect them. So this is outside of a Chinese restaurant on the Escalon Hill. You just can be walking along and you just see little pieces of the Servian Walls. Some of the gates still survive. So on the left, you see the Arc of Dolabella. This is one of the gates of the Servian Wall. The Arc of Gallienus. This is a gate of the Servian Wall in the Esquiline Hill. The largest surviving section of the Servian Walls are outside of Termini Station. And so everybody who comes into the city of Rome by train has seen this, whether they recognize what it is or not. You have seen it. But this section is interesting. It's big, but there are other sections that I think are even more interesting. So on the Aventine Hill in the southern part of the city of Rome, you can actually see a part of the Servian Walls that has a artillery placement, and so that's that little arch there. But my absolute favorite and coolest sort of Servian Wall location is in the McDonald's in the basement of Termini. And so if you go to McDonald's and you don't really want to go to a counter and you want to just put your order in, you can do it and just look to your right, and there's the Servian Wall. So the Servian Wall, I think it's outmoded, it's outdated, it stops being used in the 3rd century AD, but it's your friend. When you walk around in the city of Rome, your friend might just greet you spontaneously. And if you see it, give it a shout out and tell it how much we love it. The Servian Wall is part of that wonderful character of the city of Rome.